what would you say to somebody who's just had enough, like who's just ready to give up, like applied to like 1,000 jobs, done 1,000 interviews, maybe not 1,000, maybe 100. We'll say 100 interviews. You know what I mean? Like, what would you say to that person?
Give up.
That's crazy.
No. Right. So therefore, if you're trying to sell an Eskimo a fan,
They don't need a fan.
they don't need a fan.
Yeah.
They're already cool. Right?
Okay, gotcha.
And so, so imagine that you're able to do this. If you're able to bring a skill in and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get this person to buy this fan. If you're capable of doing those things, really, that's setting you up perfectly for being a good penetration tester and a good social engineer. Outside in the world, you say, hey, I need help. I'm trying to get into cybersecurity. Do you know anybody that I can talk to? Right? And some of those conversations don't start out by saying, get me a job. Even though you're hungry, you need to feed.
So what do I say then?
The conversation starts off with, hey, I'm interested in cybersecurity. I hear that you're in cybersecurity. Would you mind having a coffee?
What would you say to someone who's trying to pick their lane? Like, what do you think the best way to do it is? Like, should they just try a little bit of this ice cream and try a little bit of that ice cream and see which one they like better?
That worked for me. But I don't know if that works for everybody. Mm-hmm. I've interacted with students, and what is true for one student is not true for the other.
Welcome to the very first Go Certify Hub podcast, where we're going to be talking cybersecurity, one conversation at a time. This is my instructor, Gary, mentor, absolute G. We'll keep that out of there. I was about to throw in a little bumble clap. Oh, it made it. I'm sorry. Okay. Tell us about yourself, Gary. How long have you been in cybersecurity for?
Cybersecurity, I would say I'm in cybersecurity. I would say I'm in IT. And then I dabble in cybersecurity and get a feel for the entire scope of what IT represents. So, yeah, that's how I'd put it. Not to suggest that I'm not in cybersecurity per se, but I feel like as a more umbrella term, I'd rather say I'm in IT, which covers cybersecurity and everything related to computers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's a pretty smart guy. Definitely in cybersecurity. So what made you get into cybersecurity?
That's a good question. So when I first started out in IT, I was doing some medical IT, and medical IT is working with a company called Philips Medical Systems, and so I basically did things like...
Explain medical IT for us.
Medical IT,
you were just about
yeah. And so medical IT covers everything related to IT as a whole, but then you put it in perspective in relation to a hospital, for instance. So in medical IT, we did things like, okay, let's make sure that the images that the radiologist sees gets transferred to the computer systems correctly, and the associated protocols that's associated with that got properly handled. So things like HL7, I think it's one of those protocols, and DICOM for images. We made sure that everything in that space worked correctly, and the doctors were able to see true fidelity images, and that the system ran as it should. So, yeah. In a nutshell, that's where I kind of...
So you did that before you got into cybersecurity?
I did that before I got into cybersecurity. Then in IT, most people start, not everybody, but most people start out and they work in the help desk, and then they eventually grow their career where they may touch on things like networking, backend, and then they touch on databases, or right. So they'll pick their specialization and they'll move in different areas. Luckily for me, or maybe unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, I ended up touching on a lot of different modalities within IT. So I got to see a lot of those things that I just talked about. So I thought
What's modalities mean?
Modalities just means different categories or different areas within IT. So I touched on things like database. I've written SQL. Yeah. But I would never call myself a system administrator. So it's one of those situations where somebody could accuse me of being a jack of all trades, but a master of none, right?
Mm-hmm. That's not a bad thing.
No, I agree. Some people, that lends very well to their personalities. And for me, I've always been the type of person that I'm curious about different aspects of IT, and so there has never been one area that I've been like, oh, I have to learn everything about this thing. So I've looked at, I've gotten training in things like storage associated with networking,
Okay.
and that stuff was absolutely fantastic. Talking about things like NAS or SAN, right? So storage area networks, network attached storage, that kind of stuff. And so I looked at it and seen the different companies that we've gone through over the years in relation to that, and thought to myself, that was really interesting. But at the end of the day, I was like, I'm not interested in as deeply as in storage. I've seen people that have made a full career out of it.
Really? How to storage?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Setting up the devices that connect to the network, making sure that that information can be transferred and securely done, securely stored as well as transferred between those devices. And so there is a lot that goes into storage, or in the past there was a lot that went into storage. Now with cloud computing, maybe those guys aren't as important as they once were.
Yeah, so it sounds like your entry into cybersecurity was just like dabbling around with
With IT.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So IT was my first love, if you will, and essentially transitioned from there. So I went from that, and then I hit a point in my career working with a lot of different areas, and I thought, what's next? And so I can't remember what year it was, but I looked around and realized that there was a lot of exciting things happening inside of IT, and cybersecurity was one of those exciting areas.
So how long were you in strictly IT for?
Strictly IT, probably, I would say 15 plus years.
Okay, so you were in there for a while before you switched over to cybersecurity.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But so here's a tricky thing. When in early, I want to say early, as if I've been in my early experience of being in IT, because IT's been around a long time, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
in my experience of being in IT, what I found was everything was around security anyway. So this idea of cybersecurity, and that's why a lot of people were annoyed at the term cybersecurity for a long time.
So was it IT security before or what?
It was just IT, and but then because of how the breadth of the knowledge required to really do a lot of the different aspects of of IT, they started siloing different areas. So you had network administration, you could have help desk, and then you have support desk, and you have application support. So they started siloing different areas because it was so much information to hold on to for one person or a group of a small team of folks.
So what do you think is the best way to transition into cybersecurity from IT?
In my experience, there is no one way.
Okay.
My path was primarily based on my way of looking at the world, and so what I mean by that is, I look at the world as a Baskin and Robbins type of world, right?
Ice cream store?
Exactly.
Okay.
There's tons of different flavors, and I'm going to try all of them. I like to try all of them. So do I like mango? Do I like pineapple? Do I like bubblegum? Exactly. Do I like anything specific here? Yeah. But do I like it enough to only be eating that?
Yeah, I don't know about eating chocolate ice cream for the rest of my life. I mean, like cookie dough is pretty good.
Exactly.
Cookie dough's really good. So yeah, what you're saying, yeah.
Right? Exactly. And so that's how I kind of transitioned to cybersecurity, which is I like all these different areas. And what I found, especially in cyber and IT, I've yet to find an area that there's not an interconnectedness. So if you understand the concepts over in penetration testing, it's likely that you'll be a very good SOC analyst, and vice versa. If you're really, really good at being a SOC analyst and you want to transition into penetration testing, that could be done as well. If you're a good network administrator and you understand your environment, you already have the ingredients to become a really good whatever in cybersecurity, right? If you're coming from outside of that IT space though, and you come with different skill sets. So for instance, I've seen students come with...
Do you think a lot of it's transferable?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it depends on the person as well. So I've seen folks that come from an accounting background. And if you're good at accounting, what you're good at is analysis. You're very analytical in the way that you look at
a spreadsheet. If you're looking at numbers all day, I would think you'd be very analytical.
Exactly. And if you're good at picking out little little details about the way that information is showing up on the screen, and you can find patterns quite easily, that could lend itself really nicely to being a SOC analyst. Because what are you doing as a SOC analyst all day?
You just scroll and do logs all day. It's kind
You
of
just-
boring. I'd never do it,
Right.
but some people like it.
Some people love that kind of stuff. And you have to think about we talked about this before, the idea that a SOC analyst can transition. So it's not that you start off and you're just sitting there the whole time, just looking at log files. Eventually, you're going to transition your skills into being maybe a threat hunter, right? Or a threat intel, a person that does threat intel. So you collect a lot of information and you pass that into something like your SIEM. So your security, what is it again?
Information, event management.
There we go. That's what I was just testing him. All right, so so you have your SIEM, and basically what you're doing is you're trying to find ways to make sure that that system can basically detect a lot of different activities within your environment. Can they capture everything? One could argue that the more you fine tune it, then yes. But in the initial phases of that system, it's probably going to miss some stuff. Though the hope is that it misses stuff that are minor in nature. So maybe somebody trying to brute force an SSH port on your firewall, right? But you have it really locked down so they can't get it. But if it's just a, hello, is anybody there? Can I get in? And if they can't get in, that's all the better for your environment. But yeah, so I would say all those skills that you have coming to it, even if you think of it from this perspective, even if you're coming as, let's say you're a barista at Starbucks. Let's take on Starbucks, for instance.
Okay.
You're working and you pour coffee, and you're like, one day I'm tired of pouring coffee. I want to do something more fulfilling for me. Not taking anything away from folks that do that as jobs, but you want to try something different. The one thing that I've experienced, if you're a good barista, if you are good at that role, what you're going to find is you're good with interacting with people. And if you're good at interacting with people, it means that you understand how you can get people to do something that maybe they weren't intending to do. Where does that fit nicely within cybersecurity?
Probably a part of cybersecurity where you're working a lot with teams, or social engineering, I would think.
Bingo. Social engineering, right? So that's where I was going again. So imagine that you're good at interacting with people. Find out, you can look at a person and go, I think this person would like this. I think this person is interested in this thing, right? I'm going to go talk to them. So you have that insight, that ability to interact with people because you have a friendly disposition. You're going to find an easy time transitioning into that kind of world in pen testing, where you can do social engineering and get people to do things that they didn't even want to do. And so you have to see it. You have to see the world. In my opinion, you have to see the world as in transferable skills. You are bringing your ability into that environment. Not everybody has the ability to go and, as the saying goes, sell an Eskimo a fan, right?
Sell an Eskimo a fan?
You've ever heard this stuff before? No. So the terminology, the terminology comes from the belief that all Eskimos live in a cold environment.
Right.
And so therefore, if you're trying to sell an Eskimo a fan,
they don't need a fan.
They don't need a fan.
Yeah.
They're already cool. Right?
Okay, gotcha.
And so imagine that you're able to do this. If you're able to bring a skill in and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get this person to buy this fan. If you're capable of doing those things, really, that's setting you up perfectly for being a good penetration tester and a good social engineer, right? And so from my perspective, would I be a good social engineer? I don't think so. But
I think so. I think you might be.
Part of it, though, involves you believing that yourself, right? And
like believing that you would be good at.
Exactly.
Yeah, of course. Okay.
I
guess it goes with anything.
I met people that have been, from the minute they walk in and you interact with them, you're like, holy crap, I think I'm ready to give you my wallet, right? You can have it here.
Yeah.
And you're begging them to take your wallet. Whereas for me, I'd be like, I can't take it. I really want to take it just to prove a point that I could. But I feel
you're too much of a nice guy, hey?
Sure, let's go with that. Let's go with that. But I feel like it would be more of a challenge for me to accept that wallet. And at a certain point, I feel like the game would be up. Like I would give myself away, right? And I think that's where the challenge is. I think some people come with that innate understanding of right and wrong, but they know they have to go, they know the distance they have to go in order to accomplish the task, and they're committed to that.
Right.
Right. Whereas me, I'm like, no, there is that switch that flips on. I'm like,
Yeah, you can't go any further.
right. There's a point that I hit.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, if I had to tell you what turns my crown, is the excitement of looking at a piece of malware and going, holy crap, I can't believe that it did that.
Mm-hmm.
But spending hours and hours
Brutal.
painstakingly crawling through assembly language, trying to figure out why.
My head.
Exactly.
You're taking me back.
Exactly. Right? But for me, I could do that the whole night. I could do that 2-3 days in a row, just
Wow.
sitting there looking at that stuff. And that's amazing to me. Right?
Mhm. So yeah, I guess it all depends on what you like and
Yeah.
what skills you're coming in with, right?
Exactly.
Or what do you think is the most like misunderstood thing about cybersecurity?
Most misunderstood thing about cybersecurity, I think, and it comes from both sides of the conversation. That is, people that are outside and people that are inside. I think one of the things, the misunderstanding is the type of person that's required to do the job.
Mm-hmm.
So people coming
You
in,
have to be a pretty smart person to do this job, don't you think?
smart kind of doesn't really state the importance. So I'll give you what I mean. The reason I pause is because of this.
Mm-hmm.
You look at a person like Michael Jordan, for instance.
Yeah, he's dope.
Right. And if you were to say, is Michael Jordan a smart basketball? Was Michael Jordan, when he's in his heyday, was he a smart basketball player? Was he an intelligent basketball player?
I mean, you would think, considering how he played, right? He was one of the best in the league, so
Right.
you would think he has a high basketball IQ.
IQ, right.
Yeah.
But why? Is it because he played more basketball than a lot of his contemporaries?
Mm-hmm.
Or was it because he just came innately wired to read the basketball?
Maybe a little bit of both. Like, he definitely wasn't sitting around all day.
Right. And I think this idea of smart also plays into that idea. This what I'm talking about with Michael Jordan. So if I were to put that a little bit more plainly, what I would say is, I think there are a lot of people that have the innate ability to do the job, but they don't have the tenacity to accomplish the task. There are a lot of players that were at the same time that Jordan started, and they never accomplished the same things that he did. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of people that started the same time as LeBron James that are nowhere near his level of success.
Right.
Right? And so in the same way, for people coming into this space, I think the misunderstood cues are going to be how much effort it requires to bring yourself to a certain level. And in the same way, people that are already in this space, how much effort you're going to require in order to stay up to date and be on top of your game. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the convergence of those 2 points, outside and inside, makes it a very interesting conversation to be had. But I think that's the most misunderstood component of cybersecurity. It's the amount of effort required, and then also, like any area within IT or any job that you do, is what is required to do that job. What education do I need in order to accomplish this task?
Right.
I think those things are going to be misunderstood for a long time. But I think as long as, and I watched this thing on YouTube recently, this person said, knowledge and skill growth, and I realize this kind of reductive in nature, but I think knowledge and skill it's not clean. It's not a clean process where you go, oh, I'm in it now, and it's amazing, and it just happened. No, it's a grind,
and it's continuous. You think
it's a continuous process, and there are days when you're just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I didn't understand it, or I screwed up, or I hit that out of the park. That was easy. That was light work, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
but
like those days.
Right, but it's messy, and it is always in flux. There is no one size that fits all. But what is true always, as at least for me, is that it's a grind, and you have to be hustling. You have to put the work in to get to those wins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think the effort it takes to stay in cybersecurity is increasing?
No. I
Really? So you think it's decreasing?
It's not decreasing. I think it's constant.
Okay.
I don't
Even with all of these new technologies coming out, like,
the new technologies, like, one could argue that a firewall has been around forever,
mm-hmm.
right? There's always been some sort of firewall in place. What is different is the capabilities of the technology, but the core foundation of what the technology does
I see.
is going to be consistently the same. So from that perspective, it doesn't really matter if somebody adds a new moniker to it. So now it used to be just called firewalls, and now they call it next generation firewall. It used to just be called web.
Fancy.
Yeah, it used to just be called web, and then now they call it web 3.0.
Yeah,
Right.
it's getting exciting.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
exciting.
But if you look at the fundamentals of what it is,
Mm-hmm.
it's always been that way. It's just now they've reconfigured things, and when they reconfigure things, it creates opportunities. One, for it to be secured better, but also for it not to be secured at all. In other words, you open up attack surface for the threat actors to come in and destroy what you've created. So what I think is important is just constantly putting that effort in to make sure that you understand the technology well enough. But I don't think there is a when you first come in, yeah, there is that steep learning curve.
Yeah, I felt it.
But once you're in, I think what you do is you pick your lane, you pick the thing that you're really good at, and you stay with it.
Mm-hmm.
And you pick up the things that make your understanding of the new technology relevant. Otherwise, yes, you fall off to the wayside.
Mm-hmm. What would you say to someone who's trying to pick their lane? Like, what do you think the best way to do it is? Like, should they just try a little bit of this ice cream and try a little bit of that ice cream and see which one they like better?
That worked for me. But I don't know if that works for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I've interacted with students, and what is true for one student is not true for the other. So some students will come into an environment and they go, I need to understand this thing from A to Z. I need you to explain for everything to me so that I understand it. And then there's some students that come in and go, I just need you to tell me what to put into this thing. So explain to me the different levers that I need to flip, and I'll do it. And so as long as you give them a checklist, if you will,
right,
they'll click those checklists and they'll be good at that, right? And there's some roles within cybersecurity that are good for that type of thing. But there is also a certain level of limitation. There's a certain level of limitation that comes with that. And so it depends on where you're trying to go in cybersecurity. But yeah, anyway, I feel like I went off track there again, but I hopefully you understand the point. It really depends on your personality, and if you like to dabble, then dabble.
Okay.
The space is wide open for dabbling.
I like to dabble.
Yeah. And if you're more like, hey, I've had students that come in and wanted to be penetration testers, and what they did was everything that was about their actions was to move them in that direction. So they took the courses associated with.
So coming in, they knew that they wanted to.
They knew what they wanted to do.
Okay, so they they probably just scroll on YouTube and they're like, oh, this is dope. Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
They went to school and they did programming from whatever institution, and so they liked programming and they thought, oh, I heard that Python can be used for penetration testing. Oh, and then they saw a video from IPsec, sorry, and they saw something from John Hammond, or they see something from Live Overflow. So some of these guys on YouTube are fantastic, and so when they explain things to you, you're like, oh, that's exactly what I want to learn how to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was same thing, right? I looked at some of these guys on YouTube, and I read some books, and I learned about different technologies, and so computer architecture, assembly language, x86, ARM assembly. And so what I started understanding was how the hardware worked.
So you did all that when you were in school?
All in school, and then outside of school.
Okay.
So for me, and that's the other thing about, we're probably going to talk about that too, but let me just throw that in here. It's the idea that school is not the end. It's just the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Right? And so you come into school, and really what schools, the intention of any school environment. Sometimes some institutions do it better than others. Some instructors do it better than others. But the intended purpose of school is to get you to a level of, as I like to say, putting the fog on the glass, right? So it used to be that in order to test if somebody was alive, you would basically put a glass under their nose, and if there was a fog, if they misted the mirror, then you were not alive, right?
Okay, yeah.
So in other words, the same thing. The intention of school is to get you to that point of to begin. Yeah, got you. Yeah, okay. I think we need to.
Heard that. So let's talk jobs.
Yes.
I need a job. I'm about to graduate in a month,
Okay.
and I've been applying, but I haven't heard anything back yet. So, what's the best way to land your first job in cybersecurity?
This one is a tough one. Partially because of the marketplace right now. Okay. So it depends on a couple of different factors, in my opinion. In my opinion, the city that you're in makes a big, huge factor. So if the population, and again, this is anecdotal, so it's not, I wouldn't necessarily use it, hang my hat on this, but my experience has shown that the larger the population size, it seems that translates very well for job opportunities.
Okay. So a place like Calgary probably not.
It will get better in the next couple of years, but if you have a lot of students graduating at the same time trying to find jobs, then it creates a little bit more challenge for students. Is it impossible? No, I've seen some amazing stories come out of different institutions, not just ours, where students just literally fall into a job. Like
That's what I'm trying to do.
yeah, they don't have to do too much. They just fall right into a job. And so institutions will also help that process by bringing companies in. And so different institutions do that differently. So you'll have institutions that come in and interview students on the fly, or they'll do conferences on site and then interview students or have a conversation with students where they find out if the student is the right fit for that organization. So it really kind of depends. But
how do you think students can stand out?
Um,
Like if they were to get a certification after they finish school.
certifications are good. But what I've found, especially being on the hiring side, I've been in companies where I was a part of the hiring team. And I would say that this is a bit tricky. It doesn't only depend on the resume, because now if you look at the landscape of certifications and education, there are a lot of people that are getting a lot of certifications. They're basically taking certifications like they drink water. So it makes it difficult for organizations to be able to filter out who deserves their time.
Got it.
Right? And so does it help? Absolutely. If you don't have one, it automatically filters you out, especially if companies are looking for somebody that has those skills or has that proof of completing a certification. So, and the reason why I kind of rephrase that is because certifications doesn't automatically mean skills unless you're doing. So there's some organizations that have better certifications than others. So for instance, a company like SANS, I would say, because of the practical nature of their certifications, those guys have really good certifications. Something like the OSCP, that is geared towards being a practical certification, that's potentially also a really good one.
What would you consider a practical certification? Like they put you through some hands-on,
They put you through hands-on
stuff like that?
And the exam is actually practical in nature. You have to write, you have to type something, you have to write up something, you have to engage, right? So there've been tons of different organizations out there. So for instance, there's a YouTuber that transitioned into making a company, the Cyber Mentor. He created the TCM Academy.
Oh, cool. What do they do?
They do everything in cybersecurity now. So the reason I mentioned them though is because they created one of the first kind of fairly well priced certifications in penetration testing called a PNPT, Professional Network Penetration Tester, I think is what it stands for.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that one you can get for around, I think it was like at the time that I looked at it, it was about $400, maybe less Canadian, $400 Canadian, or maybe more. I can't remember, but it's like the certification is $299, and at the time that I looked at it, the course was maybe $30. So they charge a low price on the course, and they were giving deep discounts, and then they charge you extra for the certification attempt, and they give you 2 attempts. So let's say 330, 340, and then when you do the translation in Canadian, you're looking at about $500+. So my original 400 is a little bit off. Right. So let's say that's around that price. Though that entry price for a practical exam is the lowest. And what they do with that exam, according to their breakdown on their website, is that they get you to go into an environment, you perform a live penetration testing over, I think it's a week period of time.
Damn.
And at the end of that week, you have to write a report and also present verbally. Right?
Okay.
So by the end of that experience, while it may not be a real engagement, real penetration testing engagement, it is a realistic, approach.
Okay.
The other company that does something similar would be something like the OSCP.
I was just about to say, they do that with OSCP as well.
And according to my understanding, their price point is about $1,500 for the course and exam attempt, and that translates to about almost $2,000 Canadian, I think.
Yeah.
So it's obviously $500, almost $2,000. That's a big jump.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Right?
Do you think one's more recognized than the other? Like, because
in the early days, the OSCP would be the creme de la creme. It would be the top notch. It would be the most recognized. They were also kind of first in that space where they did that kind of engagement where you get tested like that. But companies like TCM have come into the space and they're also recognizable. I don't know if they're more recognizable in the US or they're getting more recognition in Canada. And then also, the next one would be SANS, and SANS also does that, but I don't believe that they do a live penetration testing.
Okay.
So there are different companies and they have different approaches. So in terms of certifications and job recognition, if there are more people getting those certifications, it means that companies need to have a way to discern who is right for the fit for that role. And so it truly depends on what the organization is needing. If the company needs a penetration tester and they set the standard as the OSCP is the standard for that, then they'll bring everybody in that has the certification for that. So in terms of your first job, would that set you aside? Absolutely. Right? Now, when the distinction starts coming in, let's say you have 10 people with the OSCP, right? And I think we were talking about this last time.
Yeah.
We have 10 different people with the same certification. Now it comes down to personality, right? You bring these people in, you have an interview, and the first interview may be technical in nature, or you may have a round of interviews, maybe 1, 2, 3 interviews, right? Let me go back for a second as well. If you're not in that 10, it means that there was something about your resume that did not attract them. So you may have the OSCP, but these 10 people may have networking.
Better keywords, eh?
Right. They may have structured their resume better, or, and I think this is also key, is that they made contact with somebody within their organization, maybe through LinkedIn, some social media interaction has been done before, or they have a friend of a friend that can put a good word in and put the resume in front of the hiring manager. So this is where, that's why I step back a little bit, is this idea of networking. Almost every job that I've had up to this point, I would say 90% of the job that I've had up to this point they've come through some sort of networking, some sort of engagement with somebody at that particular institution. So when I went and said, hey, I'm looking for an opportunity, the person went, yeah, come on in for the interview. Have I always gotten a job because I know somebody? No, I've interviewed. I remember one job I went to and I thought, oh, I know that guy. I'm in. I went to the interview. I thought I did pretty well with the interview, and no, I didn't get the job.
Yeah.
But funny enough, when I spoke to the person, the hiring manager, was a close friend of mine, I said, why didn't you guys hire me?
What is that?
And he said, well, we had another guy that I know, and that was my guy. Right?
Okay.
And so it turns out that particular interview, he said you both interviewed well, but that guy had a little bit more experience in the areas that I wanted. And so he brought him in.
Gotcha. So it wasn't the fact that he liked him more.
No, it's
Okay.
it's just that the skill set that guy had,
Mm.
he was already in. And
Gotcha.
companies will do that. They'll bring, because they have to see in fear. Sometimes they have the person that they want, but they'll bring, 3, 4 people in, 3, 4, 5 people in, just so that they can have a set of people to interview.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes they move off the person that they wanted, but in most cases they already know who they want. But from a regulatory perspective,
They have to.
they have to go through
Okay.
that process. So it's not nice, because especially if you've gone through 2, 3 rounds and you're like, man, this job is mine.
Mhm.
I'm in. It feels really crappy to learn that you weren't the pick, right? But
yeah.
but that's life, right? So I would say, going back to your original question, which is how do you get your first gig?
Mhm.
It's you start way before then. I remember having a classmate, and what set this person apart over everybody else in that group was day one. I mean, we had a 2-year program. Day one of that program, this guy was looking for jobs.
Okay, one of the program.
Day one of the program.
So he obviously knew something nobody else did.
He was on LinkedIn and he was looking for opportunities. Why? Because he understood that the job hunting process is not a 1 month process. It's not a 1 week process. It's not a 1 year process. It's a constant process of looking for opportunities, networking. Because unfortunately, the market changes, and the only way to stand out is to be different. Is to really be that person that somebody's looking for. And so you have to make those connections with people to say, hey, I know this person, Ryan. Ryan is my guy. He doesn't have all the experience for X, Y, and Z, but you know what? He'd be a awesome fit. He's already met 60% of my team. He's already on LinkedIn with all of them. Let's bring him in for an interview and let's see how he works out. Right? And so that's been my experience. It's the connection, it's the reaching out to people, it's the talking to people, but you have to do it way in advance. If you're doing it the week before you graduate, you're too late.
Okay.
You have to be connected with people a year out. And so I was thinking about this question as I was coming in today, and the one thing I don't think people take into consideration enough is imagine if you were hungry, right?
Yeah. Pretty high right now, yeah.
Right. But you have friends, right? You had a lot of friends, or you had some friends, or you were part of a group, let's say church, or you're part of some sort of committee. But let's say you were broke right now. You had somewhere to live, but you were hungry. You needed food. And you'd gone maybe 2, 3 days without food. What would you do? What would you do?
Grocery store?
Well, grocery store is not going to sell you anything if you don't have any money.
Oh,
you have no
yeah,
money.
broke as well.
You're broke,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
You're broke.
Okay.
You have enough to keep the roof over your head, but that's it. You need food.
I call my mom probably.
You call somebody.
Yeah.
So you call your mom, the people closest to you. Let's take your mom out of the picture for a second. Who else?
Well, friends.
Friends. Okay, take your friends out of the picture. Who else?
My sister.
Take your sister out of the picture. Who else?
Okay. Damn, I probably have to go I don't know who else I'd call.
And that's the difference between somebody that wants to eat and somebody who stays hungry. Right? It's, what do I do? See how many questions did I ask you? You said, I'm going to talk to my parents. I'm going to talk to my mom. I'm going to talk to my friends. I'm going to talk to my sister.
Oh, I see.
You're constantly moving through the Rolodex of people that you know. But at some point, you're going to know the people that you know is going to be done.
Yeah, it's going to run out.
It's going to run out. What next? So you never stop hunting. You never stop looking for the next opportunity. Somebody on the street, this also changes the way you think about, psychologically, you think about the world around us. The key in your psychology is that you believe that there is good around you in the world, and that the people around you will help you if you ask for help. And so what it means is, if you are hungry, if you're looking for opportunities, if you're looking to get your first break in and it's not coming very easy, if your psychology is that somebody will help me, I just need to find somebody, you go to the next person. You go to somebody outside in the world and say, hey, I need help. I'm trying to get into cybersecurity. Do you know anybody that I can talk to? Right? And some of those conversations don't start out by saying, get me a job. Even though you're hungry, you need to feed.
So what do I say then?
The conversation starts off with, hey, I'm interested in cybersecurity. I hear that you're in cybersecurity. Would you mind having a coffee with me and just kind of tell me about your experiences?
Yeah.
And you have enough of those conversations until what happens is somebody begins to realize, hey, this was a very interesting conversation. This person is quite knowledgeable, right? I think, you know what? I think they'd be a good fit over here. Again, it requires that you believe in the goodness of people to help you, right? And the recognition, and even in those conversations that you're having, the important thing is to say, hey, if you're looking for somebody, is to make sure that you put yourself out there to say, I'm looking for an opportunity. If you don't tell people, sometimes just people don't want to be nosy sometimes, and they don't want to be overly invasive in your life.
Right.
But if you tell them, I'm looking for an opportunity, people will then reciprocate that and say, hey, I will help you, right? But again, it requires that you shift your understanding of the world around you and be vulnerable, if you will.
So psychology plays a big role in...
Huge role.
Okay.
Huge, right? And the key part here, we'll talk about this multiple times throughout this conversation, is never give up. It's not a one and done. It's a one and repeat, right?
Another one.
And another one. And another one. It's like DJ Khaled, right? Another one. You gotta keep going.
I like that. That was good. That was good. So what kind of salary could I expect to get? Like, as a student, just graduating, fresh off the boat, I need some money. What's the most I can get?
In IT in general, the average salary, and it has changed over the years, but the average salary seems to be somewhere around, for beginners anyway. In the beginning, when you first begin your career in IT, oftentimes it's around $45,000, $50,000, right?
Okay.
In cybersecurity, because it's so specialized, depending on the company and depending on how bad they need people in those spaces, especially if you start in a SOC, I've seen beginners anywhere from 55, 60.
We're talking Canadian dollars.
Canadian dollars, exactly. So 55, 60, 65. Somewhere out there is where some people can get entry into the marketplace, right? Now, it also depends on the cost of living in that area. So most companies, if they're fair, and I think most companies in our area they're fair, they will try their best to make sure that they give you a living wage, and so they won't price you out so that you're basically you can't move, right? And so they'll give you a salary, and then that salary covers your living expenses, but it also gives you the opportunity to continue to grow. Some companies do cover education expenses, but a lot of companies, depending on how tight the budgets are, that you will need to take money out of your own pocket to then go get those opportunities, right? So now once you're in, and maybe you're going there next, but once you're inside of the organizations, now this is where you start putting the effort into learning more and to start adding value to the company, right? As a new person, you have to show that initiative and excitement about being in the organization, and what that means is different for different organizations. And so I always encourage people to ask the question, what do I need to do to continue to look like a superstar from your perspective, boss? And the boss will oftentimes tell you. Sometimes they don't know necessarily what they're looking for. Some organizations are not that polished,
right? And
some organizations are extremely polished, and they know exactly what they need, and they know exactly who's going to be in the 10%, and they know who's going to be in the top 10 percentile, and they know who's going to sit in the middle. And if something comes along where they need to let somebody go, guess who's getting chopped? They know who that is going to be, right? And so if an organization is well structured and you are confident enough to ask those questions, you can,
you can make your way up the ranks.
Exactly.
Get some raise.
Exactly.
Your raise. Yeah. Okay. So this is something we spoke about last time. Do you think it's worth investing thousands of dollars into certifications?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that certifications are good to get you off the ground. But I think the question was framed slightly differently when you asked me the question, which was, if your budget was tight, right? So
Right.
if your budget was tight and the choice was to get, expensive certification versus continue to survive on a day-to-day basis, I think continue to survive is
Probably,
important.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a good
Right. But if you have the funds and you're able to get a certification, then pick something that you're very interested in, but also pay attention to what the marketplace is excited about. So if there's an excitement about SOC analysts and you are excited about SOC analysts, yeah, take a SOC analyst certification. But what I would also suggest, and I strongly suggest this, is don't go certification crazy. What is a turnoff oftentimes for employers is somebody that's overqualified. So if you have 10 different certifications on your resume, in my experience, that says to them, yeah, this person seems like they're just collecting paper, right? But you're not very focused, right? Even if it's in the same field, you're taking SOC analyst certification 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? You're taking a whole bunch of them. What it says to them is, and especially if you haven't had your first opportunity yet, your first role, what it says to them is this person is just collecting paper. They just want to look important.
Got you.
Right?
How many certifications you got?
I think I only
3 or
have
4?
3.
Okay.
Yeah. I did one as a SOC analyst. I've done malware analysis. And so there are a couple of that I've done over some time. But yeah, there was one more. I forget what it is. But I'm constantly learning. So even if I don't actually completely write the certifications, I'm constantly learning the material anyway. And with the landscape that we have today in education, in places like YouTube and all of the AI, it is so much more easy. It's so much easier. It's far easier, I should say, to learn. But the challenge is in maintaining the quality of information or quality of the value that you bring to an organization. That is where you can make a difference. So you can learn, you can say, yeah, I went through this YouTube video and I watched for 2 hours. But, we talked about this already too, is if you don't set up a home lab or if you're not working on this on a day-to-day basis, that could easily become just dead weight. It's just information that got stored somewhere in the back of your brain, but it's no longer relevant because you don't use it on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
So in the same way, organizations look at all of these certifications in the same way. They just see all this collection of information, but is it moving you towards a fulcrum, a point, an inflection point? Is there something that you're moving towards? And if they don't see that, oftentimes they'll kind of eliminate you from contention. But but going back to your question again, it depends on the organization. Some organizations require that you have certifications, but those are going to be specific. So you'll see job postings that say, yeah, I want this, right? CEH, OACP, GREM, GIAC, something, right? And so if it requires that, then you get that. But I always suggest be careful not to go overboard. And so even if you have them, more certifications that you need, sometimes you have to be a little bit more conscious of the psychology of the person receiving those resumes. So that means that instead of putting 300 different certifications on your resume, put the 2 that they ask for, and maybe 1 extra to say, hey, I'm really good, right? And then what pushes you over the bubble, I guess, if you don't have work experience, but you are building skills using things like Try Hack Me or Hack the Box, and so you're building your credibility.
Is that something employers look at? Like if I've got
Absolutely.
done like a bunch of Hack the Boxes, I should put that on my resume?
Absolutely.
Seriously?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You should put it on your LinkedIn. You should put it on your resume. You should talk about it as much as possible. Hey, I'm on Hack the Box, and here's what I'm doing on Hack the Box.
They got like a little leaderboard on there as well, don't they?
Exactly. And that, if I were hiring today, would I look at the leaderboard? Not so much.
No.
But if you are on Hack the Box,
It's more of a participation thing?
right?
Okay.
If you're on Hack the Box and you're doing it I would ask you, the question I would ask you when you come in is, I'm doing weekly challenges. I'm doing 3 or 4 challenges every week, right? It means that you are up to date. sorry, not necessarily up to date, but you are keeping that information fresh in your head. So if I put you in a scenario, it won't be that you're going, oh, what command do I need to show the information in the directory again? You are so practiced that by the time you come to that interface to type, oh, ls, dir, oh, I know how to find out what applications are going to run. So say for instance, you're a SOC analyst, and I need you to know that there is an auto run feature within Windows. Where do you, if I say to you, hey, make sure that you check out auto runs, you're going to go, yeah, I got you, boss. And you're going to open up the computer and you're going to go straight to the registry and you're going to pull out all the auto runs regions. You're going to know, hey, I need to go to system internals tool called auto runs, and I'm going to pull that tool up and I'm going to go through all the auto runs to make my life easier, so that I don't have to manually go through the registry. I'm going to use this tool to get to that place. So if you have those skills, if you're showing that skill of being already practiced and a little bit polished, I can teach you the rest of the way. I can show you what the things that you don't necessarily know. But if I have to walk you through, type ls,
Brutal.
turn on the computer. But by the time I get to the end of the day, I'm gonna be like, yeah, get somebody else. Maybe somebody else. We're done.
I know that's how you were thinking that. I remember the first C class when you run us through all of those commands.
No, for me, I expect that that students are coming in not knowing, but what I'm hopeful for is the question to go, why am I typing that? A lot of students will come in and they're afraid
to ask questions.
You're good at that, which is you're asking questions and you weren't afraid to ask questions. Truthfully, there are dumb questions.
I asked a few of those too.
But it doesn't mean that they don't need to be asked.
That's what I'm talking about.
I think this is where people run into trouble, is they believe that it's a dumb question and so therefore I shouldn't ask it. You have varying levels of people within an organization. And so whenever you ask a question, even though it may be dumb to you, guess what? There's 3 people behind you going, oh, thank God. Thank goodness somebody asked that question. Why? Because I didn't know what that was. Right?
Yeah.
We don't know what background people are coming from. And so let's say, for instance, I'm typing the ls command and then I press the tab key and then you see something show up on the screen. Or I type a key combination and everything on the screen disappears. Everybody's going to go,
what the heck just happened?
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes, at least from my perspective, when I'm teaching students, I'll oftentimes do that because what I'm hoping that they'll do is they'll go, what did you just do? How did you get to that? Why? Because it proves a point. Curiosity always wins. I just made that up. But if you're curious, you will always be asking, what is that? How does that fit into this scenario? Is that required? Okay, what's important, what's not important? If you're filtering out those things, what's happening in the back is your brain is going, give me more, throw away. Oh, give me that. That looks really, really cool. Oh, now I get it. This ties into these 3 things. And so you bring them back in. Your brain is constantly doing that, triaging and then mapping out things. And if you allow that process, as you said earlier, if you understand that the process of learning is messy, there's parts of it that's messy. I think there are
good portion of it. Yeah.
Right. There are parts of it that are messy. If you understand that ahead of time, then it makes that process of learning way easier. Yeah.
So you say being curious is a big part of learning and actually getting good at cybersecurity?
Yes, absolutely. And as it relates to getting your first job, when you get into the interview, if you're curious and you're always learning, when you get in front of that person and you show your skill, if the job is yours, it'll be yours, right? Now, there are times when you're curious and you have those skills and you're showing your capability and it just didn't work out. But keep going, keep trying, keep knocking on those doors.
Hell yeah.
Right? And if the resume approach isn't working, as we said earlier, if you're hungry, try something else. What are you going to do? Go to conferences. Sometimes conferences can be expensive. Find out ones that can be done as a student for lower prices. Ask the questions that get you to what you need, what you're trying to get to. And that means, how can I get this for free? How can I get this for cheap?
I like freebies, yeah.
Exactly. Everybody likes freebies, right? Oh, I can volunteer for your conference and you'll give me a free admission to this thing? let's go.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Hell yeah.
And so you find ways to get to that thing that you're trying to get to. And oftentimes people give up at the beginning because they are afraid to try those things. They feel like if they get rejected, then automatically it's done. They have no chance.
What advice do you have for somebody like that, who's somebody who's stuck or feeling stupid for asking stupid questions?
If you can get over it, get over it. If you can't get over it, seek help.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
How would somebody seek help? Just ask?
There's asking in the classroom. There are also many of our institutions have, for instance, if you have a job, most organizations will have an EAP, Employee Assistance Program.
Okay.
So go and talk to your HR and say, hey, how do I get access to this particular resource that can help me to grow, to be a better person? Not necessarily that you're a bad person, but be better at being assertive or involved in my life in a different way. How do I move in a more intentional way, right? And there are good people that can help you with that. Psychologists, psychiatrists, right? And you can get those types of help. If you're not in that environment, if you're in a school environment, you also have access to that. You have the ability to go and talk to somebody. Even in a healthcare system, as you have in Canada, you can access those resources as well through your healthcare, right? Now, it may be that you'll only have a limited number of sessions, right? I don't know the full scope of that, but you may be limited in number of sessions, but you have to ask. And if you, again, there's also, if you're low income, you have access to certain resources for low income folks. So it is, again, if you're hungry, you're needing to eat, what do? You ask the person. Oh, I don't know the answer, but you should go talk to this person over here. Oh, there are government resources in town in Calgary or in Canada somewhere where I can go and sit with somebody and they can tell me where I can find the resource. Oh, let me go do that. Oh, I found the resource, but I don't know where the money is. Oh, if you don't have the money, go talk to this person. There is this constant chain of, and is it easy? No, it's not easy. It means that you have to get up. You have to move.
Right.
If you show that you are needing something, in most cases that I've seen in my life, if you move with intention to show that you're wanting something, as well as people see that you are needing something, if you have the psychology that people will help, guess what? It will help.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And maybe you have to go back to your roots. So if you've been out of your church environment, maybe you have to go back to your church environment. Maybe you have to reconnect with some of the friends that you've lost along the way, or right, they've moved on, or you've kind of grown apart. Connect with those people. Sometimes it's the friends that you've been, disconnected from that gives you the connection that you need.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I haven't been going to church, not gonna lie, so.
Oh, there you go.
You should go.
Hint, nudge, nudge. I'm not saying you do you. And like, church is not for everybody, and sometimes you do get to that, right? You do get to that space where you're like, I need to be away from here for a minute. So it's understandable.
So, what would you say to somebody who's just had enough, like, who's just ready to give up, like applied to like 1,000 jobs, done 1,000 interviews, maybe not 1,000, maybe 100. We'll say 100 interviews. You know what I mean? Like, what would you say to that person?
Give up.
That's crazy.
No.
We talked about this the other day.
Yeah,
Sometimes it is
the right decision. It is the right decision to step away from it. It could be that it's the way that you're approaching it. You're bringing a certain energy to that thing, that process, that needs to be refined. And sometimes this timing, right? There are certain aspects of life that you have no control over. Right? The bills being paid in this building to keep the lights on is out of your control, right? But if the lights are on here, then you come, right? Your ability to get a job is dependent on somebody saying, hey, I have a job for you to come and do, and I'm willing to hire you. If you're seeing a pattern of that not happening for you, especially if you're looking for specifically for a cybersecurity job, maybe you take a step back and say, okay, let me try generic IT. Okay, maybe let me try an adjacent role in IT. I know that I've done sales in the past. I can do sales again. Let me see if I can get into a company that does IT sales. It requires a bit of creative thinking about what your temporary stopgaps are and moving in that direction. Oftentimes as well, I've seen this happen, and this surprised me even. And I think that I'm a fairly positive person, but this surprised me. I've had interactions with people, and they went, "Yeah, I'm working at Foot Locker, for instance." I'm like, "Oh man, that sucks. You're a really good student. You should be in cybersecurity." And then they said,
Mm.
"Oh no, I'm in IT at Foot
Oh,
Locker."
at Foot Locker. Oh.
And my exact reaction, I'm like, "There's IT at Foot Locker."
Huh. I didn't know that.
Exactly. There's IT at Safer, there's IT at Co-op, there's IT at all these organizations. If they have some sort of a point of sale system, they likely have an IT team to back them up.
Mhm.
Some of them use a MSP, a managed service provider,
Okay.
so they farm that work out to somebody. But in some cases, there will be somebody on site to help them, right? But it's looking, in other words, what I'm trying to say is it's looking in those odd places where you wouldn't necessarily think that IT is located, is looking in those odd places and going, I wonder if this place has an IT need, right? The city of Calgary, the city of wherever, the close city to here, Lethbridge. Go move, right? Sometimes it's hard to move to a different locale, move to a different city, but maybe that's the answer as well. Move to a different location. Sometimes I've seen people where people want to work physically in an office, and they never consider remote work.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that's the answer: remote work.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So it's, at the end of the day, it's ensuring that you try a bunch of different things and be creative and be willing to step outside of your comfort zone to find those opportunities.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We're the podcast. Step outside your comfort zone.
Exactly.
What's a hard lesson you learned in cybersecurity that you think people watching should know about?
A hard lesson. You're gonna make mistakes. Be honest about those mistakes. Honest with yourself, honest with the people around you, and learn from those mistakes. If you can do those things, and as we said earlier, continue to grow and learn, the rest usually takes care of itself. But you have to be willing to be vulnerable in those scenarios. And as well, we talked about this as well, and I guess we kind of went a little bit stretchy today, but imposter syndrome is probably one of the biggest challenges I think most people face in their roles. It doesn't have anything specific. It's not specific to IT or cybersecurity.
Let's explain imposter syndrome. Like, what does it feel like?
What does imposter syndrome feel like?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are you thinking?
In most of the jobs that I've ever had, imposter syndrome looks like this. I go to work and I'm like, "Hey boss, how's it going today?" The boss goes, yeah, it's everything is well. And the company is doing well, and it's all great, right? You're doing a good job. And then you sit down at your terminal and you start typing away, and all of a sudden there's this thought that creeps into your mind. I'm not doing a good job.
Oh, geez.
I suck at this. I should be much better than this. And this is day one, month one, year one, and you're looking at a problem and you're like, I've probably seen this problem before, or this problem looks similar, but maybe it's a little bit more complex than the previous time that I saw this. And I'm like, I'm not good at this. I shouldn't be doing this job. I should probably quit. I'm gonna get fired. They're gonna find out that I'm not good at this, and I'm gonna get fired. No, I'm good. And you solve the problem, and then you walk away from that. And then you come into work the next day. "Hey boss, how's everything going?" "Things are going great." And yeah, things are fine. "How are you doing?" "Things are good." "Yeah, great." And you sit down at your terminal, you start the day again, and you're like, "Oh, crap."
I was there again, yeah.
It's like this little voice is sitting there. And then sometimes it's not at work. You get home, and it's like, dude, you're not good. Today was bad. Today really bad. You don't know what you're doing. You should quit. Yeah. And it's just these weird cycles of just feeling not capable, not knowledgeable. And eventually you run into a place where you're like, okay, you either get to a place where you start feeling more comfortable, and if you're lucky enough, you have a good employee assistance program where you can go and talk to somebody, or you have a good manager that recognizes that you are skilled and you're capable, and they reinforce that. And sometimes you grow out of it automatically, and then sometimes it plays into your own psychology, your own personal belief system, and you never get out of it, and you just stay stuck, and eventually it starts filtering into the work that you do. So if I were going to advise anybody around this, as soon as you start feeling those gremlins, those thoughts, intrusive thoughts coming, seek help, talk to somebody, because oftentimes they're wrong, and they can be destructive in your life. And sometimes it's a situation where the thought process is, this is not the right fit for me. But again, seeking help and having somebody talk to you, and you clarifying why you think that is, and having proof to go along with that, sometimes that can be quite, it can be a good relief to know, okay, I proved that I was right, or no, I was wrong. But in either of those scenarios, you find out something about yourself. It's a growth experience, and it can be enriching to your life if you let it. And that will allow, some people will allow them to move to the next level of their life. And I think it can be beneficial in both scenarios. But don't stay there. If you're staying there and this is a constant thought, then you should seek help for it.
And that is the end of the very first Go Certified Help podcast. I hope you got something out of it. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.